Board on my side. All right, and you ready to roll?
I'm ready.
All right, let me just give my editing team 3 seconds of dead air so they know where to start the process. And here we go. Thanks for being here, Heather, in 3 seconds. All right, Ford Mustang community, vintage cars, road trips, cocktails, food, and more. Now, it sounds like the right formula for the modern Renaissance woman. Now, television host, travel writer, car chick, and sommelier. We're going to talk about that. Let's talk about that and so much more about classic Mustangs too. Heather Storm, welcome to Ford Mustang, the Early Years podcast.
Thank you so much, Doug. That was a wonderful introduction. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. So I got to start with the sommelier thing because I have another show called Something to Wine About. I need to understand.
Ooh, so you're into wine as well, then?
I love my wine, but I love my Mustangs too. But so tell me, sommelier, legit sommelier? I mean, like you've been through the training?
Yeah. I got certified. I went through the training, had to do the whole thing. Yeah, it's an intense 2 days of training. I went up to Northern California to some chef school up there, and it was quite nerve-wracking actually, because they give you this huge manual that you're supposed to study beforehand, and I don't know how you were in school, but you're like, yeah, I'll get to it.
No, I'm definitely not.
And then as the class creeps closer and closer, you're like, oh no, there's a lot of information I need to learn in there.
Well, you actually have to do things like you have to like be able to smell the grape and the tannins and all of that, and you have to determine what the wine is based upon the smell and the region too, right? I mean, that kind of shit.
Yeah,
That's not easy stuff.
No, it's not easy. There's two different tasting tests there that you have to do, and you do go through in the class. Some actually in the beginning it's very intimidating. Some people are like, you do the taste test and people are raising their hand like, oh, it's a 1986 vintage from New Zealand. That's a Sauvignon Blanc and the West Side. I'm like, what is happening? I'm scared. But then as you realize, like, okay, I mean, being a wino yourself, right? Can I tell you that?
Yep, sure, absolutely.
You obviously, the first step is old world versus new world wines, right? So you just start with that division. And I think for anyone who's listening who doesn't know anything about wine, new world means over in America here, where we just recently really started making wine. It wasn't the 80s was the very first wines by grape, and before that it was just a bunch of farmers growing grapes. Huge wine companies like Carlo Rossi, or like things that just put it all together in one jug were making it, and that's all we really had over here, unless you were importing from the old world in Europe, right? So they've been doing it a long time. We can learn a lot from them. I tend to prefer a lot of old world wines, but I found some fantastic wines in California. So I could talk about wine all day. Maybe I should be on that podcast.
Oh my gosh!
Well.
So we this could be a good problem that we have. Now we have been talking about wines. If you're tuning in, this is not a wine podcast. This is definitely Ford Mustang, the early years. You are in the right spot, but this was a promo, I guess, for our Something to Wine About podcast as well. So if you're given the choice to either take the sommelier test again or rebuild a carburetor on a 65 Mustang, what would you choose to do?
Oh, wow. No, I think I would do the carburetor. Absolutely. Yeah. Because tests are scary. You're not being tested with the carburetor. You're just against yourself, right? Learning. You're being tested, but no one is grading you except for yourself, really. Like, you're just doing it. So when you're in that time crunch and you have all these questions, and I don't know how you do on tests, but sometimes things I know, I will get anxious about something like that and then blank out. But when you're fixing a problem, it's a different kind of brain power that you're using. And to me, it's kind of like tasting the wine rather than just answering the questions. What region did this thing come from? But when you're fixing the carburetor, it's problem solving. And I was a math person in school, and I was I like problem solving. So for me, that's why working on cars is fun, even though it can be frustrating at times.
I could not agree with you anymore. I mean, what's so interesting, and I just bought a 67 Ford F-250 pickup truck, and as opposed to my 65 Mustang, which you're probably seeing pictures of right behind me, Jewel.
I saw a picture of it. Yeah, it's really cool.
So my pickup truck, instead of Jewel, my pickup truck, his name is Joe, and Joe has a lot more problems than Jewel does. So part of what I have been actually a little bit anxious about, but working through, here I am, a 50-something guy, and I'm finally figuring out how to get my hands under the hood of a vehicle and do some work. And started rebuilding this carburetor, and because of this amazing community that I've been able to connect with, so many people have helped me. Like, not only did I have help by Joel in my community to help me find the truck, but then John, who has been instrumental in helping me literally through FaceTime rebuild all of the stuff that I'm rebuilding on the truck. And
Wow.
it's amazing, the community. Before I get into the
I
community and
agree.
talk to you about it, because I know that you have a deep reach with the community as well, I want to talk about that day. Maybe it was somewhere around, I don't know, 1979. Your dad brought home a an El Camino, or maybe it was later than 79. Yeah, because
Yeah, I
you weren't
definitely
even
was
born at
later
that
than
point.
then. I definitely was later than then, but I don't remember exactly when it was. It's just, you know, how memories are as a child, you know, because it's like you just have like, for at least for me, it's like snippets of things. Like all I
Right,
remember
right,
is that
right.
him hit with the El Camino. He picked me
Yep.
up at school. That's what he did with that.
So
Surprised
so
me.
so you got so your dad got this El Camino, and was that your first attraction to vehicles, or did you always know that you were a car girl but just didn't know it until your dad started to tinker around with the car?
Well, I wouldn't say it was the El Camino because I really didn't like that car when I first saw it, and I and I'm just being honest because I remember it just being this. I had never seen one of those before, and I was young. I can't remember exactly how old, but I was in elementary school, so I remember him pulling up and me and I'm like, "What is that?"
What the hell
And
did you
he's
do?
like, "It's our new car." And I'm like, "No, it's not." That's not it. That's not a car. And I just like didn't understand that vehicle. But we ended up riding in the back of that vehicle, enjoying that vehicle, having a great time. But my first look at that, I was like, what is this thing? But my dad had to work on that car a lot, obviously. So, you know, my dad was very hands-on about everything. And he wanted my brother and I to know how to do things. And he was really wanted me to know how to do things too. And he really never wanted me to be a girl who, you know, had to rely on a man for things. That was just really he probably drilled that into me a little bit too much. But
Hey, it
so
looks like it
he
served you.
wanted,
It looks like it served you well,
yeah,
though, in the car community, because it
it
seems like a
has.
lot of the things that you do. And I'm looking at your YouTube channel specifically, but you have your Drive Yourself Local YouTube channel and your Heather Storm Off Road YouTube channel as well. And those things, the videos on there are really cool. And by the way, Ford Mustang community, we'll put a link in the show notes so that you have access to both of Heather's channels and her blog as well. But so tell me a little bit about that, because you at some point went from this 79 El Camino
Yeah.
to deciding that you're going to get more involved in cars, to actually using them as a part of your career as well. So tell me about that.
Yeah, it's very true. I think it's been a gradual process, but I've always been someone who kind of has an intense personality, gets really into things, and like I've always really enjoyed driving. So it's been I've always been kind of particular about how cars feel and how they drive, and that just kind of has been always been an intuitive thing to me. But I didn't really kind of connect the things. So you have, you know, child helping father in the garage with random things that we're doing and learning to do tools and helping around the house and stuff. You know, build, remodel. He was big. Every time we had a house, he'd remodel it, and then of course he was in his garage, you know, with all his tools and
Hmm.
doing stuff. So he was just like that kind of guy. Like I grew up with like a man dad, you know.
Yep. Yep.
He was the kind of like man hero that, you know, we also don't see as much anymore. But like, you know, he could rebuild things, he could fix the car. If something went wrong, dad was figuring it out, like no problem. And I think he just kind of put that capable, like, you know, confidence into me and instilled that in me. But for one of the things is I had to know how to change a tire because we were living in Montana when I got my driver's license.
Hmm.
And you're 15 when you got your driver's license in Montana. You're young. And we lived out of town miles. So, you know, it's off a dirt road. So it's like for him, that was, you know, scary to have his daughter
Yeah.
suddenly, you know, coming back at late at night. And so you don't know what's going to happen and you can hit deer. It's just, it's definitely dangerous. And we did not have a cell phone. So he wanted me to be able to change a tire. He needed me to be able to drive stick shift. And that was like a really big part of like getting my driver's license. Like you
No,
need to be capable. You need to be able to do this because it's important for your survival. Like this isn't, we're not messing around. If your car goes off the ditch, you know, you can't drive a stick or whatever. So yeah, so that was really important. But I think then fast forward to Los Angeles, I kind of had, I had a fun 4 Series BMW. I had a 3 Series BMW. LA is all about like
Hmm.
getting around people who are in your way. So that really fueled my like speed demon in me as a driver. So I really just kind of focused more on that, and I was just, was like really
Hmm.
about, what car do I want so that when the light turns green, I go first.
Down the road.
um, but yeah, so that was really kind of my focus. And when Garage Squad came around, it kind of merged the two, right? It just was like, oh, there's this opportunity for you to host this automotive show. Like, can you use tools? So I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've been building stuff in my apartment in LA, but I haven't been working in a garage in a while, because I'm in Los Angeles, but I can do this. And
Right,
it was
right.
kind of fun to kind of like the nostalgia of kind of being back in the garage, relearning things and kind of having it all come together. It was a really cool experience for me. So I think when that opportunity arose, I kind of saw it as, you know what, this is, and my dad has since passed away as well. So
Mm.
for me, I think it kind of like all came together as this thing like, hey, I'm going to get back in the garage. I'm going to like make my dad proud, be in here like learning stuff that more than I ever have before. And then I just, when after a couple of years on the show, I thought, you know what would be really cool is getting an old car,
Yeah.
like that. I need that. And I swear when I get in that car, like I feel my father in there, it's just like when I get in there and drive around in that vehicle, it's just like, this is great.
Well, what's so cool about, having like a 65 is that you get in the car and it's a multi-sense experience. The cars like your 3 Series BMW or any of the newer late model cars, um, they don't drive or smell or feel the same way as
Not
those,
at all.
when I get in my Mustang, it's like, my girlfriend does not like the smell of gasoline, and I completely get it. But that for me, it epitomizes what it feels like to get in
Mhm.
that car. It's probably not healthy for me to be inhaling
No, I
gasoline,
know. I know.
but the smell of that the gasoline, the exhaust, the feel of the engine, the
Hmm.
almost like the amusement park feel of the steering wheel as opposed to the tight steering wheel on my 2011 Highlander.
Absolutely.
It's a whole different world. When did you fall in love with the drive versus the memory? You know what I mean? It's like,
I think that's interesting, but I think it all kind of comes together, right? Because when I get in the car, that car, we didn't have a Mustang growing up, but just I think because my
right.
dad had that El Camino, like it's that same kind of
Yeah.
just feeling of this old car. The smell, like you say, is very nostalgic, even if you shouldn't be breathing it in. And my friends are like, "This car smells like gas." I'm like, "Oh, really? I don't even notice."
I know. I like it.
Unless you're on a real long road trip and then you notice, because I actually had to pull over in Texas because I was getting lightheaded. I'm like, you know what?
It's probably not
It's
good.
like 100 degrees and I got to pull over. I think this exhaust is getting to me. But you said when, so I think once I started, getting more confident driving my car, because there was a nervous period when I first got the Mustang of, is it going to break down? Is it okay? Can I drive it? How far can it go? Is it going to make it? Like I just before I tested it out, and I have people who've reached out to me and fans and stuff who feel the same. They're like, "Well, I've never taken it more than 5 miles." And I'm like, "Well,
Right.
you won't
Right.
know unless you do."
Right.
So, and neither did I. So, it's like this little, like little by little. If you just need to take it to the next town first, take it to the next town. And what I started to discover is it feels fantastic. It feels better, way better than ever driving a new car
Yeah.
on the highway, and putting some old tunes in and having that gas smell, and just like you said, the steering wheel, you don't need to grip tightly. I love the loose steering wheel.
It's so
Isn't it
loose.
great?
It's
It's
like,
fantastic. It just feels so good. and
yeah.
and it just, to me, I think that if people are listening who have a classic in their garage and you're just taken to a car show, you're missing out. Get in and drive it a little bit, and yeah, it might break down. Mine just broke it down. But that's what you, coming back to what you had said earlier with the community, and that's where the community is honestly part of also what really solidified my involvement in cars, because it's like, as I was nervous in the beginning going, oh, am I going to be okay with my Mustang? I realized that, yeah, I have a
Yeah.
lot of support from a lot of people, and it's pretty amazing actually.
It may not be the most appropriate question to ask someone that has both a Bronco and and a Mustang. It's kind of like asking a parent which is their favorite child. But which one is your favorite? Remember which show you're on, for example.
Yeah, no, I really love my Mustang, and it's so different. I mean, it's just so different. It's
Yeah.
not even comparable, of course. But the reason I got the Bronco is because I can't do everything in the Mustang. As much as I love it and I can take it cruising to Salida and go downtown and talk to people who are going to talk to me when I stop at the gas station or wherever I park it, which is a great feeling because I'm like, oh, what year is that? 66? I'm like, yeah, 65. And then we talk cars for a few minutes. You feel good and everybody moves on their way. And it's just, I don't know. There's something about the community that it attracts, and just the good people and the good interactions. Like, I always feel good when I drive that car. I feel good from the interactions that I
Yeah.
have, and the people and how they um, appreciate it. I feel like I don't get that appreciation the same driving the Bronco, although I do get a lot of appreciation and a lot of questions about it as well. It's different.
Especially more so now. The Bronco has really made a resurgence in the last few years. Ford obviously has a new Bronco that's out there on the street and doing their thing, and it's really cool. The old Broncos with the restoration
Hmm.
specialists that are out there putting 150 G into an old Bronco to
I
make it like
know.
a major car. It's beautiful, but I still feel like this amazing pull towards that Mustang story. I was born in 64. So for me to be able to get a car that was somewhere around that, I knew I wasn't going to find a 64 because legitimately there's
What
not
year is
really
yours?
65. It's a 65,
Okay.
same as
Okay.
yours. And I love having a car that I can pull into, let's say, a supermarket parking lot, and inevitably somebody's going to come up and say, "You're driving my dream car." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I love that I'm driving your dream car, but this is attainable by pretty much, except for, I mean, the prices have really gone up on those on the fastbacks, but you can still get a convertible and a coupe at relatively reasonable
I
price.
know.
And it's like, this
Cheaper
is
than a new
attainable.
car.
I know it's cheaper
Cheaper
than,
than a new car. I'm just gonna say. I mean, like,
I
I got
know.
mine way cheaper than you could buy a new car. I mean, I did some work to it and stuff, but it was in good condition. But like, it still doesn't have power steering. But I put fuel injection, I upgraded the brakes, upgraded suspension. I've done things to it. I put AC in it. But like, I mean, you can get a good condition, non-rusted classic for a decent price. Now I know things have gone up lately, and I haven't been
Right.
keeping up on the price. I'll be honest. I'm sure it's gone up like everything else in the world right now.
Oh, you
But
don't even want to know.
but still.
A fastback is probably 75 grand for a fastback, and you can probably get a rusted out shell of a fastback for 25 or 30. But the
There you
coupes and the
go.
convertibles, still, I think you can get them for under 25,000.
That's what I
And
was gonna
again,
say.
cheaper than a
Yeah,
new car.
that's a cheaper than a new car because you're not getting away with like under 30 on a new car. So like, yeah.
So you mentioned a few things, and I want to talk about this because I think this is so essential to those in our community that realize that there is help out there for people to put these upgrades, or you can do it yourself if you feel like putting in the time. You mentioned fuel injection, you mentioned suspension, you mentioned some other things. The AC that you put in your car,
Hmm.
are all of those things that you left for yourself, or did you leave them for someone else to do?
I will not let anyone touch my car without me being there and involved, period.
Okay, all
I
right,
don't trust them. I've seen enough
yeah,
that I need to be there. And it's not that they're going to do it wrong. There's just a lot of ways to do things, and
yeah.
there's a best way as well.
And I find
And
that when
I
you're
like
hanging
to
over somebody's shoulder, it is a great way for it to be done the right way.
Yeah, and I don't like taking shortcuts. I don't like taking shortcuts on my stuff, and that's why I did a good job at Garage Squad, because I'm like, okay, well, there are a couple ways to do it. What's going to make the most sense? Sometimes we had to take some types of shortcuts, because of time. But if
Right.
you have the time, do it right. I mean, that's just my advice to everyone. If you have to order the one extra part because you're gonna have to get in there later, get that one extra part and put it on then. Don't go back and do a bunch of stuff. Like, really try to be smart about how you work on your car, so it's not as frustrating and you're like, oh, but I already did that whole thing and now I got to do it again because I didn't replace the ball joint there. Well, that's why it's good to reach out to community and ask, hey, when I'm doing this, when I'm doing doing the brakes, is there anything else I should do while I'm at it? You know, when I'm taking apart something, what else should I get into? Now, the list can get endless. Don't get overwhelmed. But I
Totally.
think it's just smart to reach out to community and kind of see what people suggest and reach out to people who know more than you. Don't just reach out to anybody, right? And I think that yeah, I think I lost your question.
No, no. The question was, what do you leave for other people and what do you do for yourself? And you kind of answered it. You're
Oh,
like, hey, I don't
oh
want
yeah.
anybody to get in my car unless I'm actually involved in the process too. And so oftentimes, like you just said, which is so funny. It was like you were talking freaking just to me when you said that. It was like right now I'm changing the belts on my F-250, and I'm like, that power steering pump probably could, it's got a little leak. So while I got the belts
Hmm.
off, I should replace that. It's a bolt-on
Yes.
part. It's not like it's that, but I've never done it before. So then I start to get that
Right.
freak out
It's
mode. Like,
intimidating.
yeah, it's a little, and it's
But
like
then you go on YouTube and you can find like endless videos on how
true.
to do
Yep. Yep.
it.
I am 100% sure. Um,
I think the thing is
yeah,
just
go.
knowing that, it's going to take longer than you think, like anything in life, like especially that kind of thing, especially when you're working on taking something apart and then putting it back together. Just, you do, and there can be things that can be frustrating. And that's why you need your community because, it's like you need someone else to go, wait, have you tried this? And you're like, no, I haven't tried that one. Thank you.
That's a great idea. I have not tried that. And so many of those people in your community, they've done it multiple times. I had to replace the
Mhm.
heater core on my 65 Mustang, and I could see myself going in deep into the rabbit hole between I had to go through the firewall. You've got to replace the plenum. You've got to,
Mhm.
disconnect the little cables on the heating thing. And it's like, oh my God. And then you're going to lose all the antifreeze and all this stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
my God, what's going to happen? I'm not in a good place. And you know what? It ended up all being okay. And it did take a little longer than I expected, but the car it's not like it's the daily that I have and only have that. And if it needs to sit a
Right.
couple days, the challenge is some people in our community, I'm not like this, but some people in our community would get it halfway apart and then it would sit there for 3 years. And it's like,
I
no,
think
I
the
don't like that.
challenge is when people get over their head and like start to just rip everything apart. And like I caution people for that. Like do one little project at a time. When you start taking everything apart, it seems like at the time, like, yeah, I understand this, but then all of a sudden you
Got
have
all
all
these
these
parts.
pieces and you're like, I don't know where any of these go.
Right.
And like it happens quickly because they're just
Yep.
little things and take pictures,
Take,
videos
oh
good.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, to just like remember how things go because once you get in and things start happening, you can forget. And like that would happen on Garage Squad where Cy and I are doing stuff. He's like, do you remember where this wire went? I'm like, no.
Ah, well, just put that one
I
aside
I
for a
can't
moment.
remember if the red one was here or the red one was there when we took this apart. And we're like, oops, we should have taken a picture of that one. We figured it out, but
Heather, I want to give you an opportunity if you have something that is coming up. I know that you were just recently at SEMA. Unfortunately, this will be airing after you get back from SEMA already. So
Okay,
since
cool.
we can't talk
No
about this,
problem.
since we're not in the time machine and you don't know what happened at this SEMA, you have been at SEMA before, I assume, and you've been to the event.
Yeah, yeah. When
So
when would this be going? When will this air? So I
so
can
some
know.
we're probably somewhere in the December timeframe. We air every 2 weeks,
Okay,
so
so
this is
my other
probably
episodes
somewhere
will
in
already be
December.
done. Okay. No, probably nothing to announce in December. It's kind of
No,
a
that's
slow
that's
time.
that's okay.
Happy
Let's
holidays to everybody.
That's right. Happy holidays for sure. And don't forget, for those in our community, Ford Mustang community, head over to Heather's channels. Again, both on YouTube and both in the show notes will be there, as well as her blog, which is kind of cool. I was looking at a whole bunch of your antics that you've been up to, and what's really nice about it is you involve the car because the car is always with you, but it's not necessarily just the focus. The focus of the entire thing. So you get to see you in this town where you're talking wine, and you're in this town and you're talking about Route 66, and you're in another place and talking about the vacation paradise that you're in. I mean, those are the kind of things that really makes for great content. So we appreciate you
You.
taking the car with you because I think it's an
Oh,
essential ingredient of what you do and how you do it.
I really think the car is an essential ingredient too. And the car is the means to get there, but it's also the energy that you bring, like when you're driving that car. I feel different when I drive my Bronco than when I drive my Mustang. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so when I'm
Yep.
cruising through a small town in the Mustang and I'm like, hey, can I talk to you about wine? People are like, yeah, we like that car. You can sure come in, And it's like, welcome to the open arms. So it's kind of fun. And usually someone has a story about the car. Isn't that the best part? Someone's like, I had that car when I was growing up, or I had this exact vehicle. So it's just such a nice part of the story. And I think that I think it kind of just opens people up a little bit. It, like, in general, it just, instead of people being closed off when I'm driving that vehicle, they're just friendly. I'm friendly, and just, I think it just makes for a fun show.
I agree, and everybody's got a Mustang story, and it's so clear that that it is a loved car and a loved community. And Heather, I appreciate very much you sharing your message on the show today, and your your backstory. It's so wonderful. I didn't have a chance really to get to know like who you are prior to me doing some research on this. I had gotten some recommendations to have you on the show. And knowing now that I'm meeting you, you're really a comfortable person to be just having a conversation just about wine or Mustangs or any of that stuff. So thank you for being on the show today.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Doug, for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Ford Mustang community, keep it safe, keep it rolling, and keep it on the road. Until next time.